The sky over Earth burned red, not the gentle red of sunset, but the angry crimson of fire and destruction. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the HSS Defiant, watching through the main view screen as his homeworld suffered under the alien bombardment. "Status report," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. Lieutenant Alex Reed looked up from the tactical station. His young face was pale but determined. "Orbital defenses are at 12% and falling, sir. Earth Command reports total failure of ground shields in Asia and Europe." Walker nodded. He had known this day might come, but that didn't make it easier. The United Galactic Confederation, UGC for short, had finally brought their full might against Earth. 10 years of war had led to this moment. "Communications," Walker called. Officer Diane Miller turned from her station. Her eyes were red, but her voice remained professional. "Sir, I'm receiving emergency broadcasts from all continents. And a message from Admiral Jones." Walker straightened his uniform. On screen, the image of Earth disappeared, replaced by the tired face of Admiral Jones. Smoke filled the background of the transmission. "Captain Walker," Jones said, coughing, "this is my final order. Take the Defiant and go." "Sir, we can still fight." "No, James. Earth is lost. But humanity doesn't have to die here." Jones leaned closer to the camera. "The Defiant is our most advanced ship. It has the experimental tech. Athena is fully online. You know what to do." Walker wanted to argue, but years of military discipline held him back. "Yes, sir. The UGC thinks they've won. They're already celebrating." Jones smiled sadly. "Show them why they should have feared us more. Now go, before they realize what we're doing." The transmission cut out as an explosion rocked the Earth Command building. Walker turned to his crew. 250 faces looked back at him, the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers humanity had to offer. Many had tears in their eyes. All waited for his command. "Set course away from Earth," Walker ordered. "Maximum stealth. Engineer Foster, activate the experimental shield harmonics." Maria Foster, the ship's chief engineer, nodded. Her hands flew over the control panel. "Shield harmonics active, Captain. They won't see us leave." The Defiant slipped away from Earth's orbit as the UGC ships continued their bombardment. Their sensors, designed to detect normal human ships, couldn't track the Defiant's new technology. 3 hours later, the bridge crew watched in silent horror as Earth's last defenses fell. The blue planet, home to billions of humans, was scared by fire and radiation. The UGC broadcast their victory across all channels. "Humans were too dangerous to exist within our peaceful community," announced High Admiral Thorne, leader of the Arcturus species and head of the UGC Council. His gray, scaled face filled the screen. Their aggression, their unpredictability, their constant innovation of weapons, all pose too great a risk to galactic stability. Today, we have removed that threat forever. Walker shut off the broadcast. "That's enough." The bridge was silent except for a few quiet sobs. Walker waited a moment before speaking again. "I know what we've lost today," he said. "Parents, children, friends, our home. But Earth isn't just a planet. It's an idea. It's in us, in this ship, in what we do next." He stood and walked slowly around the bridge, meeting the eyes of each crew member. "The UGC thinks humanity is beaten. They're wrong. We are the last warship of Earth, and we will not go quietly." Lieutenant Reed spoke up. "Sir, there are more than 10,000 ships in the UGC fleet. We're just one vessel." Walker nodded. "Yes, one vessel with Earth's most advanced technology. One vessel they don't know exists. One vessel with the best damned crew in the galaxy." He turned to the ship's eye control panel. "Athena, are you online?" A calm female voice answered from the ship's speakers. "I am fully operational, Captain Walker." "Run tactical analysis. If the Defiant were to engage in guerrilla warfare against UGC targets, What would be our survival odds? The eye was silent for 2.8 seconds, an eternity for a quantum computer. Conventional analysis suggests a 98.7% probability of destruction within 3 months. Several crew members looked down, hope fading from their faces. However, HFY continued. If we implement unconventional human battle strategies and utilize my adaptive learning algorithms alongside the experimental technologies, survival probability increases to 57.3%. With successful initial operations, this could improve further. Walker smiled. Better than the odds Earth faced. He walked to the center of the bridge and pressed a button on the command chair. His voice would now reach every crew member on the ship. All hands, this is Captain Walker. Today, Earth fell. The UGC believes they have won, that humanity is defeated. They're celebrating their victory, patting themselves on the back for wiping out the dangerous humans. He paused, letting his words sink in. But they missed one ship, us, and that will be their biggest mistake. The Defiant carries Earth's legacy, our determination, our creativity, and yes, our capacity for righteous anger when faced with injustice. Walker's voice grew stronger. I won't lie to you. The path ahead is dangerous. We are one ship against a galaxy. But throughout history, humans have faced impossible odds and prevailed. We adapt. We overcome. We endure. Around the ship, crew members straightened in their seats. Each of you was chosen for this ship because you're the best at what you do. Now, I'm asking you to be even better. We will strike where they least expect. We will disappear before they can respond. We will show the galaxy why humans were feared. Engineer Foster stood up. For Earth, she said firmly. Lieutenant Reed joined her. For Earth. One by one, the entire bridge crew stood, repeating the phrase. Walker nodded, his eyes bright with purpose. Medical Officer Grant, prep the cryo chambers for rotational shifts. We'll need to conserve resources. Lieutenant Reed, begin analyzing UGC patrol patterns. Officer Miller, I want you monitoring every UGC communication you can intercept. As the crew turned to their tasks with renewed determination, Walker looked once more at the distant image of Earth, now partly dark from the destruction. Make your course to the Horsehead Nebula, he ordered the helm. We'll hide there while we plan our first strike. The Defiant's engines hummed as the ship accelerated to light speed, vanishing among the stars. Behind them, the UGC fleets moved away from Earth, satisfied with their victory. They had no idea what was coming. In the darkness of space, one human warship carried the future of an entire species, and Captain James Walker intended to make sure that future would be one the galaxy would never forget. 3 months passed with the Defiant hidden deep in the Horsehead Nebula. The nebula's dense gas and dust clouds blocked most scans, giving the human crew time to plan and prepare. Captain Walker spent these months studying ancient Earth military history, focusing on guerrilla warfare tactics used by smaller forces against larger enemies. Today was the day they would finally strike back. Walker stood in the center of the bridge, looking at the 3D map HFY had created. Is everyone clear on the mission? Lieutenant Reed nodded from the tactical station. Crystal clear, sir. We hit the supply depot, grab what we need, and disappear before their reinforcements arrive. The target was simple, a UGC supply depot that serviced the alien ships patrolling the former human colony worlds. It was far from any major UGC base, with only light defenses, the perfect first target. Engineer Foster, how are our systems? Walker asked. Maria Foster looked up from her console with a tired smile. These 3 months had been hard on everyone, but especially the engineering team working around the clock to prepare the ship. All systems at peak performance, Captain. The quantum torpedoes are ready, and HFY has been fully integrated with our targeting systems. Walker nodded. Athena, final analysis. The A's calm voice filled the bridge. Based on intercepted UGC communications and patrol schedules, we have an 82.3% chance of completing the mission with minimal damage. The depot's current defensive capabilities are limited to 3 patrol ships and basic shield technology. Good odds, Walker said. He looked around at his crew. Many still carried the haunted look of those who had watched their homeworld die. But now, there was something else in their eyes. Determination. Purpose. Helm, set course for the UGC supply depot at Outpost 473. Maximum stealth until my command. The Defiant slipped out of the nebula, its advanced stealth systems making it nearly invisible to standard UGC sensors. At half-light speed, they approached the supply depot, a large space station surrounded by cargo containers and docked ships. "We're within range, Captain," Reed reported. Walker took a deep breath. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Athena, initiate Combat Protocol Alpha. Officer Miller, prepare to jam their communications on my mark. Ready, sir, Miller replied from the communication station. All hands, battle stations, Walker ordered. Throughout the ship, crew members moved with practiced efficiency to their positions. Lieutenant Reed, target their sensor array and defense grid with quantum torpedoes. Reed's fingers danced across his console. Targets locked. Walker stood, his voice clear and firm. Fire. The Defiant decloaked as 4 quantum torpedoes streaked toward the supply depot. The UGC had never seen weapons like these, torpedoes that could partially phase through standard shields. The first 2 hit the depot's sensor array, destroying it instantly. The second pair disabled the main defense grid. Direct hits, sir. Reed called out, excitement in his voice. Their shields are down. Officer Miller, jam all outgoing communications now, Walker ordered. Miller nodded sharply. Communications jammed, Captain. They won't be calling for help. Walker watched the view screen as panic spread through the depot. The 3 patrol ships scrambled to respond, but they were slow. The UGC had grown complacent after their victory over Earth. Reed, disable those patrol ships. Target engines only. The Defiant's main guns fired with precision. Athena's targeting algorithms were flawless, hitting each ship exactly where intended. Within moments, all 3 UGC vessels were drifting, unable to pursue. Foster, initiate docking procedure with the main supply hub. Walker ordered. Boarding team, prepare to move out. You have 15 minutes to secure the supplies we need. The boarding team, led by Security Chief John Davis, moved quickly through the depot. The alien workers offered little resistance. Most had never seen actual combat, and none had ever faced angry humans before. Captain, we're securing food, medical supplies, and fuel cells, Davis reported over the comm. There's also a data core containing UGC patrol routes and communication codes. Excellent. Grab it all, Walker replied. 10 minutes remaining. On the bridge, Officer Miller suddenly straightened in her chair. Captain, I'm detecting a transmission that got through our jamming. It's weak, but it reached the nearest UGC outpost. They're sending ships, at least 5 cruisers. Walker nodded calmly. This was expected. No plan survived first contact with the enemy. How long do we have? 22 minutes until they arrive, Miller reported. More than enough time, Walker said. Davis, status. We've got everything, Captain. Returning to the ship now. 5 minutes later, the boarding team returned with their valuable cargo. Engineer Foster had also managed to siphon additional fuel for the Defiant's engines. All personnel aboard, Captain, Reed confirmed. Disengage docking clamps. Helm, prepare for maximum acceleration on my mark. Walker watched the tactical display as the UGC reinforcements approached. Athena, plot a course through the Calera asteroid field. Captain, Reed objected. The Calera field is extremely dangerous. The asteroids are densely packed and highly unstable. Walker smiled slightly. Exactly. The UGC ships are bigger and less maneuverable than we are. They won't follow us in there. Course plotted. ATENA confirmed. Mark. Walker ordered. The Defiant shot away from the depot at full speed, leaving behind 3 disabled patrol ships and a damaged supply station. The human warship reached the edge of the Calera asteroid field just as the UGC reinforcements arrived at the depot. "They're pursuing," Captain Miller reported. As expected, Walker said calmly, "Helm, take us into the asteroid field. Athena, guide us through." The Defiant dove into the swirling mass of rocks and ice. The ship twisted and turned with incredible precision, avoiding collisions by mere meters sometimes. Behind them, 2 UGC ships attempted to follow. "They're still on our tail," Reed reported, gripping his console as the ship made another sharp turn. Walker nodded. "Engineer Foster, prepare to detonate one of our mines." During their approach, the Defiant had quietly dropped several small mines, another technology the UGC hadn't encountered before. "Mine ready, Captain," Foster confirmed. Walker watched the tactical display carefully. "Wait for it. Now." The mine exploded, sending hundreds of asteroid fragments hurtling in all directions. The UGC ships, unable to maneuver quickly enough, suffered heavy damage. One lost its engines completely and drifted into a larger asteroid, exploding on impact. The other pulled back, abandoning the pursuit. The bridge crew of the Defiant cheered. "Secure from battle stations," Walker ordered, allowing himself a small smile. "Set course for our secondary hiding location in the Vega Nebula. Maximum stealth once we clear the asteroid field." As the Defiant slipped away, the crew began to catalog their captured supplies and data. The raid had been more successful than they had dared to hope. Later that night, in his private quarters, Walker recorded a message. He knew the UGC would eventually intercept it. That was the point. To the United Galactic Confederation. "You believe humanity died with Earth. You were wrong. We are still here, and we will not be forgotten. This is just the beginning." He ended the recording and sent it on a burst transmission to every UGC frequency they had discovered. Throughout UGC space, the message played on thousands of screens. On dozens of occupied human colony worlds, people heard the captain's words and began to hope again. In the UGC headquarters on Arcturus Prime, High Admiral Thorne watched the message with growing rage. "Find that ship," he ordered his subordinates. "I want it destroyed immediately." But the Defiant was already gone, hidden among the stars, planning its next strike. The hunt had begun. 6 months after Earth's destruction, the HSS Defiant had become a legend across UGC space. The human warship had struck 23 targets, destroyed or disabled over 40 UGC vessels, and disappeared like a ghost each time. Captain Walker stood on the bridge, reviewing their latest successful mission. Damage report. Engineer Foster looked up from her console. "Minor damage to our port shield generators. I can have them fixed in 6 hours." Walker nodded. "Good work. And what about our target?" Lieutenant Reed smiled. "The weapons facility is completely disabled, sir. They won't be building any more planet killer bombs there." The crew had changed over these 6 months. Gone were the haunted looks of grief. Now they moved with confidence and purpose. Athena had helped them perfect their hit-and-run tactics, with the AI continuously learning and adapting their combat strategies. "Captain," Officer Miller called from communications, "I'm picking up a distress signal from a UGC research station in the Orion sector. It's not a standard UGC frequency." Walker frowned. "Put it through." A weak voice came through the speakers. It spoke in broken English. "Help. Prisoners. Experiments. Not much time." The bridge fell silent. It could be a trap. Reed said what everyone was thinking. Walker considered this. Athena. Analysis. The AI responded promptly. "The transmission originates from Research Station Gamma 9. Intelligence from our previous raids indicates this facility is used for classified biological research. The signal uses an old Earth emergency frequency that the UGC would be unlikely to know. Walker made his decision. Set course for the research station. Maximum stealth. We'll assess the situation before committing to action. 3 hours later, the Defiant hung in space near the research station, a large ring-shaped structure with multiple docking bays. Scans showed minimal defensive capabilities, but several labs and containment areas. I'm detecting life forms in the containment sections, Reed reported. Not human. And not any UGC species we've encountered before. Walker stood. I'll lead the boarding party. Reed, you're with me. Dr. Grant, prepare the medical bay for possible injured. Foster, keep the engines hot. We may need to leave quickly. The boarding team, equipped with advanced stealth suits, entered the station through a maintenance airlock. They moved silently through the corridors, avoiding the few UGC guards. In the main lab, they found the source of the distress call, and much more. By all that's holy, Medical Officer Grant whispered as they entered the containment area. 3 different alien species were being held in separate cells. One group looked like tall, crystalline beings with multiple limbs. Their bodies seemed to shimmer with inner light. Another species appeared aquatic, with blue-green skin and large, intelligent eyes. The third were small, gray-skinned creatures with 6-fingered hands and oversized heads. Walker approached the nearest cell. The crystalline being inside moved forward. "You are human?" it asked in halting English. Walker nodded. "I'm Captain Walker of the HSS Defiant." "The ghost ship," the being said. "We heard stories. I am Saddle of the Novan. We sent the signal. We hoped." Reed was checking the security systems. "Captain, we got maybe 10 minutes before the next guard rotation." Walker turned back to Axel. "We're going to get you all out of here." "What is this place?" "They experiment on us," Zal explained. "The UGC. They take species they think are useful but not civilized enough for membership. We are tools to them." Walker's jaw tightened. "Not anymore. Reed, get these cells open." Within minutes, they had freed the prisoners, 12 Novan crystalline beings, 8 of the aquatic aliens, who called themselves Elori, and 15 of the small gray aliens, the Vril. "We must hurry," said Tal, one of the Vril. "Guards will come. We know way to shuttles." Led by the Vril, who knew the station layout, the expanded group made their way to the shuttle bay. They encountered 2 guard patrols, but the combination of human weapons and the strange abilities of their new allies. The Novan could manipulate metals, while the Elori seemed to sense danger before it appeared, allowed them to overcome the resistance. They reached the Defiant with only moments to spare before a general alarm sounded throughout the station. "Cast off. All hands to battle stations," Walker ordered as they rushed onto the bridge. The freed aliens were escorted to the cargo bay, which Dr. Grant had hastily converted to a temporary shelter. The Defiant pulled away from the station just as UGC defense systems came online. 2 patrol ships moved to intercept. "Hold on," Walker warned everyone. "Athena, evasive pattern delta." The ship lurched as it executed a complex series of maneuvers. The UGC ships fired, but their shots went wide as the Defiant's new shield harmonics scattered their targeting systems. "Return fire," Walker ordered. "Disable their engines only." The Defiant's weapons struck with surgical precision. Within moments, both UGC ships were drifting helplessly. "Get us out of here," Walker said. "Maximum speed to the rendezvous point." Once they were safely away, Walker went to check on their rescued passengers. Dr. Grant was already treating injuries and running scans. "Fascinating biology," Grant told Walker. "The Novan are silicon-based, not carbon like us. The Elori have a kind of natural telepathy. They can sense emotions and intentions. And the Vril, absolutely brilliant minds. They were forced to develop weapons for the UGC." Zal approached Walker. You saved us. Why? We are not human. Walker looked at the alien thoughtfully. Because it was right, and because we have a common enemy. Over the next few days, the crew of the Defiant learned more about their new allies. The Novan had natural engineering abilities, able to shape metal and crystal with their touch. The Ilori's telepathic abilities made them excellent at anticipating enemy actions. The Vril were technical geniuses who had been forced to build weapons for the UGC for decades. In the ship's conference room, Walker met with representatives from each species. The UGC has controlled our worlds for centuries, explained Tal of the Vril. They call us lesser species. Use us like tools. We are not the only ones, added Mary and Ilori. Dozens of worlds suffer under UGC rule. When they found Earth, they feared humans would help us rebel. That is why they destroyed your world. Walker absorbed this information. What had started as a mission of survival and revenge was becoming something bigger. I have a proposal, he said finally. The Defiant can't free all these worlds alone, but together we might start something that could change the galaxy. He outlined his plan, a resistance network across UGC space. The Defiant would continue its raids, drawing UGC forces away from occupied worlds. Meanwhile, their new allies would establish contact with other subjugated species, building the Hidden Alliance. It will be dangerous, Walker warned. The UGC is powerful. Kael's crystalline body glowed brighter. So is hope, and you have given us that. As the meeting ended, Walker returned to the bridge. On the main screen, he could see a UGC news broadcast showing High Admiral Thorne. We have committed half the UGC Navy to hunting down the human terrorist vessel, Thorne was saying. This menace will be eliminated. Walker smiled. Half the UGC Navy chasing one ship meant many occupied worlds would have reduced protection, exactly what they needed. The captain looked around at his crew, now working alongside their new alien allies. What had begun as humanity's last stand was becoming a galaxy-wide revolution. And it was just beginning. 1 year after Earth's destruction, the HSS Defiant had transformed from a lone warship into the center of a growing rebellion. Captain Walker stood in the newly expanded war room, studying the galactic map with his diverse command team. Humans alongside Novan, Ilori, and Vril allies. UGC fleet movements show they're still searching for us in the Perseus Arm, Lieutenant Reed said, pointing to a cluster of red dots on the map. But our intelligence network reports growing unrest on at least 20 occupied worlds. Walker nodded. The past 6 months had seen their small resistance grow beyond what any of them had imagined. The Defiant itself had changed, enhanced with Novan crystalline technology that strengthened its hull and improved energy efficiency. The Vril had modified their weapon systems, making them even more effective against UGC ships. Most impressive was the integration of Ilori telepathic interfaces with HFY. The AI could now anticipate enemy actions seconds before they happened, giving the Defiant an almost supernatural advantage in combat. Our next target must send a message, Walker said, not just to the UGC, but to everyone watching from the shadows. Zell, now the Novan representative on Walker's council, stepped forward. The crystalline being's body pulsed with blue light as it spoke. Our spies report Commander Grell has gathered an elite strike force, 15 of their best warships. They plan to ambush us. Where? Walker asked. The Orion Nebula, replied Mary, the Ilori representative. Her large, expressive eyes blinked thoughtfully. They believe we will attack the fuel depot there. Walker smiled slightly. They're right. That was our next target. It's a trap then, Reed said with concern. Yes, Walker agreed. And we're going to spring it. He outlined his plan. It was bold, perhaps even reckless, but if it worked, it would change everything. 3 days later, the Defiant approached the edge of the Orion Nebula. The colorful gases and dust clouds created a stunning backdrop for what was about to unfold. All stations report ready, Captain, Reed announced. Walker nodded. All hands, battle stations, begin operation, turning point. The Defiant moved into the nebula, its advanced sensors cutting through the cosmic haze that would blind most ships. Behind them, 12 small, unmanned drones followed at a distance, a new technology developed by the human Vril engineering team. UGC fleet detected, reported Officer Miller from communications. 15 warships, positioned exactly where intelligence suggested. They're waiting for us to reach the fuel depot before springing their trap, Walker said. Let's surprise them first. Athena, initiate attack pattern Omega. The AI's voice was calm as ever. Attack pattern Omega initiated, calculating optimal positions for drone deployment. The Defiant accelerated suddenly, diving deeper into the nebula. The drones spread out, taking positions throughout the area. UGC fleet is moving to intercept, Reed reported. They'd spotted us. Walker smiled. Good. Miller, open a channel to Commander Grell's flagship. On the main view screen, the stern face of Commander Grell appeared. The alien's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. Captain Walker, Grell said. Finally, the end of your little rebellion. Commander Grell, Walker replied politely. I'm afraid you've misunderstood the situation. This isn't the end of anything. It's just the beginning. Before Grell could respond, Walker cut the transmission. Now, Athena. The AI activated the drones. Each small craft emitted a powerful electromagnetic pulse, specially calibrated to the frequency of UGC shield systems. At the same time, the Defiant fired a spread of quantum torpedoes directly at Grell's command ship. The results were devastating. Shields flickered and failed across the UGC fleet as the electromagnetic pulses did their work. The torpedoes struck Grell's ship, disabling its main weapons and propulsion systems. All drones functioning at optimal capacity, HFY reported. UGC fleet defenses at 23% and falling. Walker stood, his voice firm. Target their weapons and engines only. I want disabled ships, not destroyed ones. The battle that followed was unlike anything the UGC had ever experienced. The Defiant moved with impossible precision, anticipating every maneuver the enemy ships attempted. When the UGC vessels fired, the Defiant was already somewhere else. When the Defiant fired, its shot struck with unerring accuracy. 10 enemy ships disabled, Reed reported, barely containing his excitement. 4 retreating. Grell's command ship is hailing us, Miller added. Walker straightened his uniform. On screen, Commander Grell's face appeared again, but all arrogance was gone. Smoke filled the bridge behind him, and sparks flew from damaged consoles. How? Grell demanded. How can one ship defeat 15? Walker looked at him steadily. Because we're not fighting just for survival, Commander. We're fighting for freedom, not just for humans, but for all the species the UGC has oppressed. He nodded to Miller, who cut the transmission. Prepare boarding teams, Walker ordered. I want every piece of intelligence we can salvage from those ships. The aftermath of the battle yielded more than just military intelligence. The Defiant's crews found evidence of growing dissent within the UGC itself. Several member species had begun questioning the Council's policies, especially after repeated failures to capture one human vessel. Most valuable was a secured transmission from High Admiral Thorne to the UGC Council. Walker and his command team watched it in the war room. The situation has become untenable, Thorne was saying, his gray-scaled face twisted with rage. If conventional means cannot eliminate this threat, we must resort to more extreme measures. Project Supernova must be accelerated. Project Supernova, Reed asked. Tall, the Vril representative, looked up with alarm. Weapon, very bad weapon, can destroy entire solar systems. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Later that night, Walker recorded a transmission of his own. But this one was directed not at the UGC, but at the oppressed worlds throughout the galaxy. Today, one ship defeated 15 of the UGC's best warships, he said, not because our technology is superior, but because our cause is just. The UGC wants you to believe they are invincible. They are not. They want you to remain divided and afraid. You must not. The time for hiding is over. The time for resistance has begun. Join us. Together, we can build a galaxy where no species dominates another, where all sentient beings live in freedom. The message spread like wildfire. On dozens of worlds, beings of all kinds watched and listened. Some were inspired to open rebellion. Others began quiet sabotage of UGC operations. Many simply began to hope. In the following weeks, ships from other species began to join the Defiant. First a few, then dozens. A fleet was forming. On the bridge of the Defiant, Walker looked out at the growing assembly of vessels. What had started with one human warship was becoming an armada. HFY, he said quietly, begin planning our next mission. It's time to take this fight directly to the UGC Council. The AI's voice held a note of what sounded almost like satisfaction. Already calculating optimal approach vectors to Arcturus Prime. Captain. The final battle was coming. 18 months after Earth's destruction, a remarkable fleet gathered at the edge of the Arcturus system. At its center was the HSS Defiant, now bearing scars from countless battles, but still proud and deadly. Around it flew 200 ships from 24 different species, former slaves and subjects of the United Galactic Confederation, now united in rebellion. On the Defiant's bridge, Captain Walker studied the tactical display showing Arcturus Prime, the UGC capital planet. Heavily defended, it had never faced a serious threat before. Final status report, Walker ordered. Lieutenant Reed, now commander of the fleet's tactical operations, responded first. All ships report ready, Captain. The main fleet will engage UGC defenses here and here. He pointed to key positions. While they're distracted, the Defiant will proceed with the primary mission. Engineer Foster spoke next. The cloaking device is operational, Captain. Combine Novan Vril human technology. It should mask us from UGC sensors for approximately 40 minutes. That will be enough, Walker said confidently. Zal approached, the Novan's crystalline body glowing with a steady blue light. My people are ready, Captain. The crystals have been programmed with the evidence. Walker nodded. In the cargo bay, specially grown Novan memory crystals contained proof of the UGC's crimes against countless species over centuries. These would be crucial to their plan. All strike team members report to the shuttle bay, Walker ordered. This is what we've been fighting for. Today, we end the UGC's reign of terror. As the fleet moved into position, Walker met with his strike team, a mix of humans, Novan, Ilori, and Vril. Each had been chosen for their specific skills. We have one chance at this, Walker told them. While our fleet engages their defenses, we'll take the Defiant in under cloak. Our target is the council chamber during their emergency session. High Admiral Thorne will be there with the entire UGC leadership. The plan was bold, perhaps even foolhardy, but bold action had brought them this far. Athena. Walker asked the ship's AI. Final mission success probability. The AI, now enhanced with Ilori technology, responded instantly. 53.7% probability of complete mission success, Captain. 72.4% probability of partial success. Better odds than we had at the beginning, Walker said with a small smile. Let's move out. The battle began with a fury that lit up the space around Arcturus Prime. The rebellion fleet struck hard and fast, drawing UGC forces away from the capital. Amid the chaos, the Defiant slipped through the defensive grid, its new cloaking technology rendering it invisible to UGC sensors. Approaching the capital district, reported the helm officer. 35 minutes of cloak remaining. Walker stood at the center of the bridge, calm despite the tension. Take us in. Strike team, prepare for deployment. The Defiant glided silently through Arcturus Prime's atmosphere, approaching the massive dome that housed the UGC Council chamber. Inside, emergency alarms were blaring as reports of the fleet attack poured in. Cloaking device failing, Foster warned. The atmospheric entry damaged some of the circuits. Walker nodded. It doesn't matter now. We're here. He turned to the weapons officer. Target the Council chamber dome. Minimal power. We want to make an entrance, not destroy the building. The Defiant suddenly appeared in the skies above the Capitol, its weapons firing with surgical precision. A section of the dome collapsed inward, creating an opening large enough for the ship to hover directly above the Council chamber. Inside the chamber, High Admiral Thorne and the UGC Council stared upward in shock as the human warship appeared above them. Strike team, deploy, Walker ordered. Walker led the team as they descended into the Council chamber using gravity-reducing technology. The few guards present were quickly neutralized by Ilori telepathic attacks and Novan crystal weapons. High Admiral Thorne rose from his seat, rage contorting his scaled face. How dare you invade this sacred chamber? Walker walked calmly to the center of the room. This chamber stopped being sacred when you used it to order the destruction of Earth and countless other worlds. He nodded to Xal, who placed the memory crystals into the chamber's communication system. Instantly, screens around the room lit up with evidence of the UGC's crimes. Experimentation on sentient beings, destruction of peaceful worlds, enslavement of dozens of species. This evidence is now broadcasting to every world in UGC space, Walker announced. Your people are seeing the truth for the first time. Several council members looked horrified as the images played. Many had not known the full extent of the atrocities committed in their name. These are lies, Thorne shouted. Guards, kill the intruders. But the guards didn't move. Some even lowered their weapons as they watched the evidence unfold. A council member from the Vega system stood up. Is this true, Admiral Thorne? Did you order these actions without full council approval? Another council member joined her. We voted to contain the human threat, not destroy their homeworld. Thorne's composure cracked. You fools. Strength is the only language the galaxy understands. I did what was necessary to maintain our dominance. In his rage, Thorne lunged for a control panel. If you stand with these rebels, you can die with them. Project Supernova is ready. I'll cleanse the galaxy of all who oppose us. Walker moved quickly, but it was Athena, linked to the Defiance systems, who reacted first. The AI disabled the control panel seconds before Thorne could activate it. The chamber erupted into chaos as council members turned against each other. Some sided with Thorne, while others, seeing the evidence, stepped away from him. You've lost, Admiral, Walker said quietly. Your own people are turning against you. The next hours were a blur of activity. With the UGC leadership divided, the rebellion forces secured key positions throughout the capital. Several UGC member species, horrified by the revealed atrocities, declared their support for the rebellion. Thorne and his closest allies were arrested by their own council members. Project Supernova was dismantled under the supervision of Vril engineers. 3 days later, representatives from all species, former UGC members, subjugated worlds, and the rebellion forces gathered to begin forming a new government, the Galactic Alliance. Walker stood at the podium, looking out at the diverse gathering. He felt the weight of Earth's memory on his shoulders, but also the promise of a new beginning. Today marks the end of domination and the beginning of cooperation, he said. The alliance we form will be built on respect for all sentient life, regardless of origin or biology. He gestured to the HSS Defiant, now hovering peacefully above the new alliance headquarters. One ship began this journey, not because of its weapons or technology, but because of the determination of its crew. The qualities that the UGC feared in humans, our adaptability, our persistence, our willingness to stand up for what's right. These are the same qualities that will now help build a better galaxy for all. Walker looked around at his crew, human, and alien alike, who stood proudly at attention. Earth may be gone, but humanity's spirit lives on. Not in domination, but in the freedom we've helped win for all beings. That is humanity's true legacy to the stars. As the delegates applauded, Walker gazed upward through the rebuilt dome at the stars above. Somewhere out there, perhaps, were other human colonies that had escaped the UGC's notice. Someday they might find them. But for now, the galaxy was entering a new age, an age that had begun with one human warship that refused to surrender. The Defiant had lived up to its name. Captain Jack Reed stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force destroyer Resilient, his face hard as stone. Through the main view screen, he watched the blue glow of Neptune grow smaller as his ship retreated. Behind the planet, bright flashes lit up the darkness of space. Each flash meant another human ship was gone. "Captain, the Solarian warships have broken through the Neptune defense line," said Lieutenant Mike Green, his voice shaking. "All EDF ships in Sector 7 are. They're gone, sir." Reed's hands tightened on the railing. 6 months. That's all it had taken for the mighty Solarian Empire to push humanity back to the edge of their own solar system. 6 months of watching good ships and better people die fighting an enemy with technology far beyond their own. "Status report," Reed ordered, keeping his voice steady for the crew. "Not good, sir," said Green, looking down at his console. "The Dauntless and Protector are still fighting, but their shields are failing. The rest of the fleet is." He shook his head. Reed closed his eyes for a moment. The Neptune defense line had been their last real chance to stop the Solarian advance. With it broken, Earth lay exposed. "Message from Fleet Command, sir," called out Communications Officer Lisa Jones. "All remaining ships are ordered to fall back to Earth orbit. They're saying this is our final stand." Reed looked around the bridge. His crew was tired, faces marked by too many battles and too little sleep, but they were still ready to fight, still ready to die for Earth if needed. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "Maximum speed." The war room inside Earth Defense Headquarters was silent as the holographic display showed the approaching Solarian fleet. President Anna Wilson stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her face showing none of the fear she felt inside. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked. Admiral Frank Johnson, Supreme Commander of Earth's military, looked up from his datapad. 47 combat-ready vessels, Madam President, against their 300. Someone whispered a curse. Wilson ignored it. "And our planetary defenses. Operating at 60% capacity, the orbital platforms took heavy damage in the last attack." Wilson nodded slowly. 6 months ago, humanity had been expanding peacefully through their solar system, establishing colonies on Mars and mining operations in the asteroid belt. Then the Solarian Empire had arrived with their massive ships and energy weapons that cut through Earth's best defenses like they were paper. "Admiral Tom Davis has requested to speak with you, Madam President," said an aide. "He says it's urgent." Wilson nodded, and Davis' face appeared on a nearby screen. His uniform was dirty, and a bandage covered one side of his face. "Madam President," he said, bowing his head slightly, "I need authorization to enact Protocol Omega." The room went silent. Protocol Omega was the last resort contingency plan, designed for a scenario they had hoped would never come. Wilson hesitated only briefly. "Authorization granted, Admiral. May God be with you." Davis nodded grimly. "And with all of us." The screen went dark. Wilson turned back to the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need to discuss terms of surrender." Reed stood on the bridge of the Resilient as they entered Earth orbit. The planet looked peaceful from space, blue and white and perfect. You couldn't see the cities damaged by Solarian strikes. You couldn't see the people living in fear. "Captain," said Jones, "incoming transmission from the Solarian flagship. It's Admiral Grant himself." Reed straightened his uniform. On screen, The image of a tall, silver-skinned being appeared. Admiral Grant of the Solarian Empire looked almost human, except for his metallic skin and eyes that glowed with an inner light. "Captain Reed," said Grant, his voice smooth and emotionless, "I have just finished discussing terms with your President Wilson. Earth has surrendered. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Reed's face burned with anger and shame. "And if we refuse?" Grant's expression didn't change. "Then I will target major population centers on your planet. I believe I would start with the city you call London. There are 11 million humans there, correct?" Reed felt the eyes of his crew on him. He thought about fighting, about going down in a blaze of glory. But what would that accomplish except the deaths of millions of innocents? "We will comply," he said through gritted teeth. Grant nodded. "A wise decision. The Solarian Empire now claims this system and all its resources. Your people will be allowed to live under our guidance. Resistance will not be tolerated." The screen went dark. "Orders, sir?" asked Green quietly. Reed took a deep breath. "Power down weapons. Prepare to be boarded." 2 weeks later, Reed stood in a crowd of Earth military officers, watching as President Wilson signed the formal surrender document. The ceremony was being broadcast across Earth and throughout the Solarian Empire. Admiral Grant stood nearby, looking pleased in his cold, alien way. With this signing, Grant announced, the human race officially becomes part of the Solarian Empire. Your military forces are disbanded. Your ships now belong to us. You will find that life under Solarian rule can be comfortable so long as you obey. Reed noticed something strange. Admiral Davis was not present. None of the officers from the carrier Defiance were there. As if reading his thoughts, Grant spoke again. "We are aware that one of your vessels, the carrier Defiance, fled during the final battle. Let me assure you, this ship will be found and destroyed. Such futile gestures of defiance will not be tolerated." After the ceremony, Reed found himself alone with President Wilson for a brief moment. "Is it true," he whispered, "about the Defiance?" Wilson's eyes darted around before she leaned closer. "Protocol Omega is in effect," she whispered back. "Admiral Davis is doing exactly what he's supposed to do." Before Reed could ask more, Solarian guards approached, and Wilson was escorted away. That night, as Reed looked up at the stars from his apartment window, he thought about Protocol Omega. Most officers believed it was just a last-ditch evacuation plan, a way to save a handful of important people if Earth fell. But Reed had once heard rumors that it was something more, something that might give humanity a second chance, even if the worst happened. For the first time since the Neptune defense line fell, Reed felt a tiny spark of hope. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of Solarian sensors, Admiral Davis and the Defiance were carrying that hope with them. 3 years passed under Solarian rule. Earth had changed. Tall, silver buildings now stood in major cities. Solarian ships filled the skies. Humans worked under the watchful eyes of their new masters. Jack Reed wiped sweat from his forehead as he tightened a bolt on the engine of a Solarian patrol ship. His old captain's uniform was gone, replaced by gray work clothes with a number stamped on the chest. 47,291. Just another human worker in the Mars shipyard. Finish up. 47,291. Inspection in 10 minutes, said a Solarian overseer, his metallic skin gleaming under the harsh lights. "Yes, sir," Reed replied, keeping his eyes down. He had learned that looking the Solarian in the eye could earn you a day without food. As soon as the overseer walked away, Reed quickly placed a tiny device inside the engine housing. It looked like a normal part, but it was actually a scanner that would record the ship's communication frequencies. Another small victory for the Resistance. Later that night, Reed entered his small living pod. These tiny rooms housed most workers at the shipyard. Once inside, he locked the door and moved his bed to reveal a small hole in the floor. From it, he pulled out an old-style radio. Sparrow to nest, he whispered into it. Package delivered. Over. The radio crackled. Nest to Sparrow. Good work. Any news on the big move? Over. Reed frowned. They're speeding up the schedule. First transports leave in 2 weeks, not 4. Over. Understood. Stay safe. Nest out. Reed hid the radio again and sat on his bed, thinking about the big move. The Solarians had announced they would relocate millions of humans to mining colonies on distant planets. Officially, it was called an opportunity. In reality, it was a death sentence of hard labor in terrible conditions. Time was running out. On Earth, former President Anna Wilson sat in her office in the Human Governance Center. The Solarians had kept her as a figurehead, a puppet leader who signed their orders and told humans to obey. Most people thought she had given up, sold out to save herself. They were wrong. Wilson looked up as her Solarian assistant entered. Governor Wilson, Admiral Grant wishes to see you. Wilson nodded and followed the assistant to a large meeting room. Admiral Grant stood by the window, looking out at what had once been Washington, D.C. Governor Wilson, he said without turning. The first relocation ships are ready. I want you to make a speech encouraging humans to embrace this new opportunity. Wilson kept her face blank. Of course, Admiral. I've already prepared some remarks. Good. The relocations are essential to the Empire. We need workers for the new mining operations. Grant finally turned to look at her. There have been whispers of resistance. People saying they will fight the relocations. You will tell them such actions are futile. I will make that very clear, Wilson said. After Grant left, Wilson returned to her office and pressed a hidden button under her desk. A small section of wall slid open. Inside the hidden space was a young woman with short brown hair. Did you hear? Wilson asked. The woman nodded. 2 weeks until the first ships leave. We need to move faster. Can you get a message to Davis? Yes. Our next cargo ship leaves tomorrow, with the usual supplies for the Solarian outpost on Europa. The message will be hidden inside. Wilson handed her a small data chip. Tell him we can't wait any longer. Whatever he's planning, it needs to happen now. Far beyond the edges of the solar system, hidden in the dust clouds of a small, unnamed nebula, Admiral Tom Davis stood on the bridge of the carrier Defiance. But the ship no longer looked like a human vessel. Its hull had been rebuilt and expanded over the past 3 years. And it wasn't alone. Through the view screen, Davis could see dozens of ships of various sizes. Some were clearly built from pieces of old Earth vessels. Others were entirely new designs. All of them were being worked on by teams of engineers and technicians. Admiral, said Commander Bill Taylor, approaching with a data pad. Latest production numbers from the asteroid facilities. We've completed 15 more fighters and 2 cruisers this month. Davis nodded, taking the pad. And the new weapon systems. The EMP cannons are installed on all major ships. The drone swarms are at 90% capacity. Taylor lowered his voice. The gravity well generators are still giving us problems, but Dr. Miller thinks she's close to a breakthrough. Davis walked to a large holographic map showing the Solarian Empire. Red dots marked major military bases. Blue lines showed patrol routes, all information gathered piece by piece through the Resistance network. And are people inside the system? Davis asked. Still in place. We just got a message from Earth. Wilson says the Solarians are starting their relocations in 2 weeks. Davis's face hardened. Then we have 2 weeks to be ready. He turned to face Taylor. Send the alert to all our hidden bases. It's time to bring the ships together. Back at the Mars shipyard, Reed was finishing his shift when alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Solarian guards began running toward the landing pads. What's happening? Reed asked another worker. Don't know, the man replied, but they look scared. A moment later, a Solarian patrol ship landed urgently. Officers rushed out, shouting orders. Reed moved closer, pretending to clean a nearby engine part while listening. attacked 3 outposts in the Kuiper Belt. One officer was saying, "No survivors, no warning." "Impossible," said another. "Who would dare attack the Empire?" Unknown ships, no identification signals. They hit hard and vanished. Reed felt his heart beat faster. Could it be? After 3 long years. That night, the Resistance radio network was buzzing with rumors. Reed listened intently. Nest to all birds. Confirmation of strikes against Solarian outposts. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Protocol Omega is active. Reed closed his eyes, feeling a mix of hope and fear. Protocol Omega, the last resort plan that few knew about. Before the war, when Earth first detected signs of the approaching Solarian fleet, Admiral Davis had proposed a radical contingency plan. If Earth fell, they would need a way to fight back. Secret shipyards were built in distant asteroid belts. Key scientists and engineers were quietly given secondary assignments. Resources were hidden away. Even most of Earth's military hadn't known about it. It was too important to risk the information leaking. And now, those hidden resources were finally being used. Reed looked out his small window at the red Martian sky, where Solarian ships were scrambling in obvious confusion. "They thought they won," he whispered to himself. "They never even looked for our hidden fleet." His communicator beeped with an encrypted message. "Get ready. Extraction in 48 hours." The Resistance was about to become a revolution. "Move now," Reed whispered urgently. He and 4 other Resistance members ran across the dark landing pad. Above them, the red Martian sky was filled with stars and the occasional flash of a Solarian patrol ship. Their target sat 50 meters away, a small Solarian scout ship. "Guards change in 3 minutes, said Jane Miller, a former Earth Defense Force pilot. "We need to be inside by then." Reed nodded. The plan was simple but dangerous. Steal a Solarian ship and escape the solar system to find Admiral Davis and the hidden fleet. If they failed, they would face public execution. They reached the ship and Reed quickly placed his hand on the security panel. The device strapped to his wrist bypassed the Solarian security system, a gift from the Resistance's tech experts who had been studying Solarian technology for years. The door slid open. "We're in. Move." The small team rushed inside the ship. Jane immediately went to the pilot's seat while Reed and the others secured the entry points. "I need 2 minutes to override the startup sequence," Jane said, her fingers flying over the alien controls. "Keep watch." Reed looked through a small viewport. On the other side of the landing pad, 2 Solarian guards were talking. They hadn't noticed anything yet. "Hurry," he urged. "Almost there." "Got it," Jane said. The ship hummed to life. Just then, one of the guards looked their way. His eyes widened, and he reached for his weapon. "They'd spotted us." "Take off now," Reed shouted. The ship lurched upward as Jane fired the engines at full power. Alarm sirens began to blare across the shipyard. "Hang on," Jane called as she pushed the engines beyond safe limits. The small scout ship shot upward through the Martian atmosphere. "Patrol ships launching," said Mark, another team member, watching the sensors. 4 of them, coming fast. Reed strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat. "Can we outrun them?" Jane's face was tight with concentration. "Not in atmosphere, but once we hit space, I can activate the jump drive." The ship shook as energy blasts from the patrol ships passed close by. One grazed their hull, making the lights flicker. "Target the ship's engines, but do not destroy it," came a Solarian voice over the communication system. "The humans must be captured alive." "Not happening," Jane muttered. The ship broke through Mars' atmosphere into open space, charging jump drive. "Need 30 seconds." A blast hit their rear section, sending sparks flying from a control panel. "Hull breach in aft section," Mark reported. "Sealing now." 10 seconds to jump, Jane said. Another hit rocked the ship. 5 seconds. Reed could see the Solarian ships closing in through the view screen. Jump now. The stars stretched into lines as the ship leaked into faster-than-light travel. The Solarian ships vanished behind them. For 2 weeks, they traveled in stolen ship, making short jumps between systems to avoid detection. Their destination was a set of coordinates Reed had memorized years ago during a secret briefing about Protocol Omega. Jump complete, Jane announced as they arrived in an unnamed star system far from Earth. This is the place, but I don't see anything. Reed looked at the empty space around them. According to his information, this should be the location of Sanctuary, the main base of the hidden fleet. Maybe we're too late, Mark suggested. Maybe they've already left. Reed shook his head. No, they're here. He opened a communication channel and transmitted a specific sequence of tones, the Protocol Omega recognition signal. For a long minute, nothing happened. Then suddenly, their sensors lit up with warnings. Multiple ships decloaking all around us, Jane exclaimed. Reed smiled as the space around them seemed to shimmer. Where there had been nothing, now dozens of ships appeared. Some he recognized as modified Earth vessels. Others were new designs he had never seen before. A communication request flashed on their console. Reed accepted it. Admiral Davis's face appeared on the screen. He looked older, with more gray in his hair and new lines on his face, but his eyes were still sharp and determined. Captain Reed, he said with a small smile, took you long enough to join us. Welcome to Sanctuary, Admiral Davis said as he led Reed and his team through a massive space station hidden inside a dense nebula cloud. Reed stared in amazement. The station was huge, with docking bays holding ships of all sizes. Thousands of people worked throughout the facility, building, repairing, and preparing for war. How? Reed asked. How did you create all this in just 3 years? Davis gestured around them. Protocol Omega wasn't just a plan. It was already in motion before the Solarians arrived. We had small outposts and manufacturing facilities hidden throughout neighboring star systems. When Earth fell, we activated everything and started building. They entered a large command center where a holographic map showed the entire Solarian Empire. This is what we're up against, Davis said. The Solarian Empire controls over 300 star systems. They have thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. Reed felt a moment of doubt. And how many ships do we have? Davis smiled grimly. 342 combat vessels, plus support ships. Not as many as them, but we have advantages they don't expect. He pointed to a different display showing unusual ship designs. Our scientists have been studying Solarian technology. We've created weapons specifically designed to target their weaknesses. EMP weapons that can shut down their electronic systems. Chrome swarms that can overwhelm their defenses. And our newest creation, gravity well generators that can trap their ships and prevent them from jumping to light speed. Reed looked at the displayed weapons with growing hope. The Solarians think humans are primitive, Davis continued. They believe we're only good as slaves. They never bothered to hide their technology from us because they thought we couldn't understand it. That was their biggest mistake. He turned to face Reed directly. The time has come to show them exactly what humans can do when pushed too far. I'm putting you in command of the destroyer Vengeance. It's one of our newest ships. Reed straightened his back. What's the plan, Admiral? First, we start hitting their outposts and supply lines. Make them chase shadows. Then, when they're confused and spread thin, we strike at their main fleet. Davis's eyes hardened. The Solarians thought they won 3 years ago. It's time to show them how wrong they were. 2 days later, Reed stood on the bridge of the Vengeance. The ship was smaller than traditional destroyers, but packed with new weapons and technology. His crew was a mix of original Earth Defense Force personnel and new recruits trained at Sanctuary. Through the view screen, Reed could see hundreds of ships gathering. The hidden fleet was coming together for the first time, preparing to launch their full-scale counterattack. All systems ready, Captain, reported his first officer. Reed nodded, feeling the surge of determination. The storm is gathering, he said quietly, and the Solarians have no idea what's coming for them. Enemy outpost in range, Captain, reported Jane Miller, now serving as weapons officer on the Vengeance. Reed nodded, studying the Solarian supply station on his display. The station orbited a small moon in a system far from Earth, but it was important. From here, the Solarians distributed resources to a dozen of their frontier worlds. All ships, attack pattern Delta, Reed ordered. Remember, hit hard and fast. We need to be gone before reinforcements arrive. This was the fifth raid his battle group had conducted in the past week. Admiral Davis had split the human fleet into small, fast-moving groups that struck Solarian targets across the Empire and disappeared before the enemy could respond. Target locked, Jane said. EMP missiles ready. Fire. The Vengeance shuddered slightly as it launched 4 missiles toward the Solarian station. The other 5 ships in Reed's group fired as well. The missiles streaked across space, their warheads designed to overload Solarian electronic systems without destroying the station itself. On the view screen, Reed watched the missiles hit. There was no explosion, just a pulse of blue energy that washed over the station. Immediately, the station's lights flickered and went out. Direct hit, Jane reported. Their systems are down. Reed turned to his communications officer. Send the message. The officer nodded and transmitted a short video message to the station. In it, Admiral Davis stood in his uniform, speaking directly to the camera. Attention, Solarian Empire. Your rule is coming to an end. Humanity will not remain enslaved. This is only the beginning. Message sent, Captain. All ships, prepare to jump to the next target, Reed ordered. The small battle group vanished into light speed, leaving behind a disabled station and very confused Solarians. On the Solarian homeworld, Admiral Grant stood before the Imperial Council, his normally confident posture now stiff with tension. Explain these attacks, demanded the Solarian Emperor, his silver skin gleaming in the council chamber's light. Grant bowed. We believe it is a small group of human rebels, Your Majesty. They have attacked 27 outposts and supply stations in the past 2 weeks. A small group, the Emperor asked, his voice dangerously calm. How has a small group managed to disable 27 Imperial facilities? They appear to have developed weapons that specifically target our systems, Grant admitted, and they never stay to fight. They strike and vanish immediately. Another council member leaned forward. And what of this human admiral who appears in their messages? Davis, I believe. Grant's face hardened. Admiral Davis commanded the human carrier that escaped during the conquest of Earth. We believed his ship was destroyed or lost in deep space. It seems we were mistaken. The Emperor stood, towering over the council table. Find these rebels. Crush them. Make an example of them that the entire galaxy will remember. Grant bowed again. As you command, Your Majesty. I have already recalled our main battle fleet to secure the core systems. As Grant left the council chamber, he tried to hide his worry. These were not the actions of a desperate band of refugees. The attacks were too well coordinated, too effective. Something larger was happening, something he had missed. Back on Earth, former President Wilson sat in her office, reading reports of the attacks with carefully hidden satisfaction. The Solarians were growing nervous. Security had tightened everywhere. The time had come. Wilson pressed a hidden button under her desk, sending a prearranged signal to resistance cells across Earth and its colonies. Within hours, small acts of sabotage began. Power stations failed. Communication networks went down. Solarian patrols found their vehicles suddenly inoperable. Nothing big enough to trigger a massive response, but enough to stretch the Solarians thin, to make them look in all the wrong places. Reed stood in Admiral Davis's command center aboard Sanctuary Station. On the main screen, a map showed the position of the Solarian main battle fleet. They're doing exactly what we hoped, Davis said. Grant has pulled their fleet back to protect their core systems. Reed studied the map. That leaves Earth vulnerable. Davis nodded. And that's where we'll strike next. He gestured to the assembled ship captains. The time for small raids is over. We're launching our main attack. He pointed to Jupiter on the map. The Solarians have established their main Earth defense base on Callisto, Jupiter's outermost large moon. If we take it, we control access to Earth. This is where we reveal our full strength. The room filled with determined voices as Davis outlined the attack plan. When he finished, Reed approached him privately. "Admiral, permission to lead the Special Operation Team," Reed requested. Davis looked at him carefully. "That's the most dangerous part of the mission. You'll have to get inside the Solarian Command Center and disable their early warning network." "I know their systems better than anyone," Reed said. "I spent 3 years working on their ships." After a moment, Davis nodded. "Very well, Captain. The Vengeance will take you in." 3 days later, Reed's ship approached Jupiter using a stolen Solarian identification code. Around him, the human fleet waited in hiding, using the newly developed cloaking technology reverse-engineered from Solarian systems. "We're being hailed," reported his communications officer. Reed took a deep breath. "Put them through." A Solarian face appeared on screen. "Identify your vessel and purpose." "Supply ship Radiant, delivering parts to Callisto Base," Reed replied, using the cover story they had prepared. There was a pause while the Solarian checked something. "Your ship is not on our expected arrival list." Reed forced a casual tone. "Check again. We were rerouted from Europa Station yesterday." "Admiral Grant's orders." The mention of Grant's name worked. The Solarian looked flustered. "One moment. Yes, I see the order now. Proceed to docking bay 4. The screen went dark, and Reed let out a breath. It worked. The Vengeance, disguised as a Solarian supply ship, continued toward Callisto. "All Special Operation Team members, prepare for deployment," Reed ordered as he rose from his command chair. "We have 30 minutes to get inside and disable their warning network." Jane looked up from her station. "Good luck, Captain." Reed nodded. "When the network goes down, that's Davis's signal to bring in the fleet. Let's hope the Solarians enjoy surprises." Reed and his team of 6 moved quietly through the Solarian base on Callisto. Their stolen uniforms and forged identification got them past most checkpoints, but time was running short. "The main control room is ahead," whispered Mark, checking the stolen map. "Heavy security." Reed peered around a corner. 2 Solarian guards stood at the entrance to the control room. "We need a distraction," he said. As if in answer to his words, alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. "Unauthorized chips detected in Sector 7, announced a voice over the station speakers. The guards at the control room door looked at each other, then hurried away toward the disturbance. "That's our diversion team right on schedule," Reed said with a smile. "Move now." They rushed to the control room door. Reed used his security bypass device to get them inside. The room was large, filled with Solarian officers monitoring screens showing space around Jupiter. Before anyone could react, Reed's team fired stun weapons, dropping the Solarians where they stood. "Secure the door," Reed ordered as he moved to the main control panel. "I need 2 minutes." He worked quickly, using the knowledge he had gained during his years working in the Solarian shipyard. His fingers flew over the alien controls, shutting down one system after another. "Warning network disabled," he announced finally, sending the signal to Davis. On the screens around them, small dots began to appear as the human fleet decloaked. Dozens at first, then hundreds. A Solarian officer who was regaining consciousness looked at the screens in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "Where did they come from?" Reed smiled as he watched the human ships move into attack formation. "We were here all along," he said. "You just never bothered to look." The space around Jupiter erupted in battle. Hundreds of human ships faced off against the surprised Solarian defenders. Energy beams cut through the darkness of space, Explosions bloomed like silent, deadly flowers. Reed and his team fought their way back to the Vengeance, which waited at a maintenance dock. Alarms blared throughout the Callisto base as Solarians realized they were under a full-scale attack. "Get us out of here," Reed ordered as he reached the bridge. "Join the main attack force." The Vengeance broke away from the base, engines flaring. Through the view screen, Reed could see the massive battle unfolding. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, using tactics that confused the Solarians. "Admiral Davis is hailing all ships," Jane reported from her station. Davis's face appeared on the screen. The surprise worked. Their early warning system is down, and they can't call for reinforcements. Now we press the advantage. All ships, execute Battle Plan Omega. The human fleet split into 3 groups. One continued to engage the Solarian ships near Callisto. Another moved to secure the other Jovian moons. The third, led by Admiral Davis in the Defiance, pushed toward Earth. Reed's ship joined Davis's group. As they moved away from Jupiter, Reed could see the new human weapons in action. Swarms of small, unmanned drones surrounded Solarian cruisers, overwhelming their defenses. EMP weapons shut down Solarian systems, leaving ships drifting and helpless. Most impressive were the gravity well generators. When activated, they created distortions in space that prevented Solarian ships from jumping to light speed, trapping them in normal space where they could be engaged. "They never expected us to have this technology," Reed said, watching a Solarian battleship struggle against a gravity well. "They thought we were too primitive." "Their mistake," Jane replied with a grim smile. A massive explosion lit up space behind them as one of the main Solarian defense platforms fell. "Captain," called his communications officer. "Incoming transmission from Earth. It's President Wilson." Wilson's face appeared on screen. She looked tired but determined. "Captain Reed, the resistance has begun. We've taken control of major communication centers in Asia and North America. The Solarians are in chaos." "We'll be there soon, Madam President," Reed promised. "Hold on." Admiral Grant stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Might, as it orbited Earth. His silver face showed rare emotion, anger, and disbelief. "How did they build such a fleet without our knowledge?" he demanded of his officers. "How did they develop these weapons?" No one had answers. Reports flooded in from all over the solar system. Human ships attacking everywhere. Resistance fighters rising up on Earth and Mars. Solarian forces in disarray. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, "the main human fleet has broken through our Jupiter defenses. They will reach Earth within hours." Grant's eyes narrowed. "Prepare all ships. We will meet them and crush them, and order orbital bombardment of major Earth cities. Show these humans the cost of rebellion." His officer hesitated. "Sir, that would kill millions, including our own personnel." "Do it," Grant shouted. "I will not lose this system." In orbit around Earth, massive Solarian warships began to move into bombardment positions. On the ground, humans watched the sky in fear, seeing the ships through breaks in the clouds. Then new ships appeared, human ships, emerging from lightspeed jumps. The Defiance led the fleet, with the Vengeance and dozens of other warships following close behind. "All ships, protect Earth," Admiral Davis ordered. "Stop those bombardment vessels at all costs." The space around Earth became a battlefield. Human and Solarian ships clashed in the largest space battle humanity had ever seen. On the Vengeance, Reed watched as a Solarian ship targeted London. "Target their main weapons," he ordered. "Fire everything we have." The Vengeance unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy weapons. The Solarian ship's shields flickered, then failed. A follow-up shot disabled its weapons. All across Earth's orbit, similar scenes played out. Human ships fought with desperate courage, knowing everything was at stake. On the ground, President Wilson led a team of resistance fighters into the main Solarian control center in what had once been New York. After a brief firefight, they secured the facility, cut off their communication with the fleet. Wilson ordered, "and get me a channel to all Earth broadcasting systems." Minutes later, her face appeared on screens worldwide. "People of Earth, this is President Wilson. Today we fight for our freedom. The hidden fleet has returned, and we are taking back our world. Rise up. The time is now." Across the planet, millions of humans answered the call. They overwhelmed Solarian positions through sheer numbers. The occupiers, cut off from orbital support and surrounded by hostile populations, began to surrender. In space, Admiral Grant's flagship, the Imperial Might, was the largest vessel in the battle. Its weapons tore through several human ships, threatening to turn the tide. "We need to take out Grant's ship," Admiral Davis said over the fleet communication. "It's the key to their command structure." Reed looked at his tactical display. "The Vengeance is in position. We can make a run at it." "Too risky," Davis replied. "Their firepower will tear you apart." "We have to try," Reed insisted. "We'll use the gravity well generator to trap them, then hit them with everything we have." After a moment, Davis nodded. "Do it. We'll provide covering fire." The Vengeance broke from the main formation, diving toward Grant's massive flagship. Solarian weapons fire streaked past them, some hitting and shaking the ship violently. "Gravity well generator at full power," Jane reported. "Ready on your mark." "Activate," Reed ordered. Space distorted around the Solarian flagship. The massive ship suddenly slowed, caught in the artificial gravity well. "They're trapped," Reed said. "All weapons, fire." The Vengeance unleashed everything it had, joined by several other human ships. The Solarian flagship's shields began to fail under the assault. On the bridge of the Imperial Might, Admiral Grant watched in disbelief as his ship's systems failed one by one. "Impossible," he whispered. "They were primitives. How could they do this?" An explosion rocked the ship, throwing him to the floor. Warning lights flashed everywhere. "Admiral," called his second-in-command, "we've lost engines and weapons. Life support is failing." Grant stood slowly, straightening his uniform. "Prepare my shuttle." Reed watched as a small shuttle launched from the crippled Solarian flagship. "It's Grant," he said, recognizing the shuttle's signature. "He's running." "Should we pursue?" Jane asked. Reed considered for a moment, then shook his head. "No, let him go. Let him tell the Solarians what happened here today." Around them, the battle was ending. With Grant's flagship disabled and Earth's surface largely in human hands, Solarian forces began to retreat or surrender. Admiral Davis's voice came over the fleet channel. "All ships, stand down from combat operations. The Earth is secure. I repeat, Earth is secure." Cheers erupted across the bridge of the Vengeance. Reed looked out at his home planet, now free after 3 long years. 1 month later, Reed stood in the rebuilt United Nations building in New York. President Wilson addressed the delegates from Earth and its colonies. "Today we offer peace to the Solarian Empire," she said, "not as subjects, but as equals. The war has proven that humanity will not be conquered. We ask only for our independence and the right to determine our own future." The Solarian representative, not Grant but a lower-ranking diplomat, looked uncomfortable. "The Empire is willing to discuss terms." Reed smiled slightly. The Solarians' carefully constructed image of invincibility had been shattered. Their defeated Earth had sent shockwaves through their empire. Already, reports indicated that other subjugated species were beginning to resist. As the meeting continued, Reed slipped outside to a balcony overlooking the city. Admiral Davis joined him there. "Thinking about what's next?" Davis asked. Reed nodded, looking up at the stars. "There are other worlds out there under Solarian control. Other people who need help." Davis smiled. "I was thinking the same thing. The Vengeance is being refitted. She'll be ready in a week, interested in a new mission." Reed extended his hand. "Always, Admiral." As they shook hands, Reed knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. They had built a hidden fleet and won their freedom. Now they would help others do the same. The Empire thought it had won. They never saw the hidden fleet coming, and they would never make that mistake again.